not able to right now. That was cool. I can't believe I did that. What the heck? I'm not able to right now. That was cool.
Have you ever been in the wrong place at the exact right time? 1 minute you're sipping Earl Grey in a quiet cafe, minding your own business. The next, a woman in a $10,000 coat grabs your wrist, terror in her eyes, and whispers 6 words that change your life forever. Pretend you're my son's fiancée. You think it's a joke, so did she. Until the guns came out. This isn't just a story about a fake engagement. It's a story about survival betrayal and falling in love with a monster who might just be the only one who can save you. You won't believe who was watching from the shadows. The rain in Seattle didn't just fall. It felt like it was trying to erase the city. Inside the Gilded Leaf. However, the world was warm, smelling of bergamot and old money. Finn Mitchell sat in a high-backed velvet chair, her hands wrapped around a porcelain cup. She was 24, a freelance copywriter with $78 in her bank account, and a deadline she was actively ignoring. She wasn't here because she could afford the $40 tea service. She was here because it was the one place her ex-boyfriend, a loud-mouthed bartender named Greg, would never look for her. She took a sip, closing her eyes. For a moment, she wasn't Finn the broke writer. She was just safe. Don't look up. Just listen. The voice was low, cultured, and shaking. Finn froze. A woman had slid into the empty seat opposite her. Finn blinked. The woman was older, perhaps in her 50s, but striking didn't do her justice. She wore a charcoal wool coat that looked softer than Finn's bedsheets, diamonds the size of aspiring planets in her ears, and fear. Raw, unadulterated fear. Excuse me, Finn stammered, setting her cup down. I think you have the wrong table. I have exactly the right table, because you are the only woman in here sitting alone who doesn't look like she's waiting to be photographed, the woman hissed, her eyes darting toward the entrance. My name is Vittoria Romano. You don't know who I am, and that is a blessing. But the 3 men who just walked in, they know exactly who I am, and they are waiting for my son to arrive. Finn's heart hammered against her ribs. Romano. The name sounded familiar, like a headline she'd scrolled past on a news ticker about organized crime corruption or shipping magnates. Maybe all 3. I don't understand, Finn whispered. Instinct telling her to grab her bag and run. My son Gabriel is walking through that door in 30 seconds. Vittoria said, her hand shooting across the table to grip Finn's wrist. Her grip was iron. If he walks in alone, the Vanzetti brothers, those men by the door, will kill him. They have a sniper across the street. The deal was, if Gabriel is settled, the truce holds. If he is single, they view him as a threat to their daughter's inheritance and they take him out. Today. Finn stared at her. You want me to... What? Pretend. Just for 10 minutes. Vittoria pleaded, a tear leaking from her immaculately lined eye. Pretend you are his fiancée. Pretend you are the reason he is late. If he has a fiancée, the contract states they cannot touch him. Please. I am a mother begging you for her son's life. The bell above the door chimed. The atmosphere in the tea room shifted instantly. The air grew heavier, charged with static. Vittoria gasped. It's him. Finn turned her head. Walking through the door was a man who looked like he had been carved out of granite and bad intentions. He was tall, over 6'3", wearing a black suit that fit him like armor. His hair was dark, swept back, and his face, it was the kind of face that stopped traffic. High cheekbones, a jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and eyes that scanned the room like a predator assessing a herd. This was Gabriel Romano. The rumors Finn had ignored were suddenly very real. He looked dangerous, lethal, and he was walking right into a trap. Finn looked at the door. 3 men in leather jackets were shifting hands, moving toward their waistbands. They were waiting for a signal. Vittoria was trembling. Finn didn't think. She didn't calculate the risk. She just moved. She stood up, knocking her chair back with a loud screech that drew every eye in the room, including the 3 hitmen and Gabriel himself. "Baby!" Finn shouted, her voice shrill, but carrying across the silence. She threw her arms open, plastered a manic smile on her face, and ran toward the most dangerous man in Seattle. "I told you not to keep your mother waiting. You are so late." Gabriel. Romano stopped dead in his tracks, his eyes dark as obsidian, narrowed in confusion, then danger. His hand twitched toward his side. Finn didn't stop. She threw herself at him, wrapping her arms around his neck. The smell of him hit her sandalwood gunpowder and rain. He was rigid, a statue of muscle and tension. "Play along or you die," she hissed into his ear, so quietly only he could hear. Then she pulled back and kissed him. It wasn't a romantic kiss. It was a collision. She pressed her lips to his, praying he wouldn't snap her neck. For a split second he did nothing. Then she felt a large, warm hand settle on the small of her back. He pulled her flush against him, breaking the kiss, but keeping her close. "I'm sorry, amore," Gabriel said, his voice a deep rumble that vibrated through her chest. He looked over her shoulder, locking eyes with the men at the door. Traffic was murder. The double meaning hung in the air. The 3 men by the door hesitated. They looked at each other, then at the couple. One of them touched his earpiece, listened, and then shook his head. They turned and walked out into the rain. Finn's knees gave out. Gabriel held her up, his grip tightening. "Don't faint," he whispered, his voice devoid of warmth. "We aren't clear yet. Get her in the car, now." Those were the first words Gabriel spoke to his security team as they burst out of the tea shop's rear exit. Finn found herself sandwiched between Gabriel and a man named Rocco, a giant with a scar running through his eyebrow in the back of a bulletproof SUV. "Wait, my bag, my laptop," Finn protested, trying to reach for the door handle. "Forget it," Gabriel snapped, not even looking at her. He was busy typing furiously on a secure phone. "I'll buy you a factory of laptops. Right now, you need to keep your head down." "Excuse me." Finn's fear was quickly metabolizing into anger. "I just saved your life. A thank you would be nice, or maybe just letting me go so I can go home." Gabriel slowly turned his head. Up close he was terrifying. His eyes were a storm of grey and blue, cold and calculating. He looked at her, not like a person, but like a loose thread in an expensive suit. "You didn't save my life, Miss Mitchell. Finn Mitchell. Miss Mitchell. You complicated it. By intervening, you have now signaled to the Vanzetti family that you are significant to me. That makes you a target. If I let you go, you will be dead within the hour. They don't leave witnesses, and they certainly don't leave loose ends." Finn felt the blood drain from her face. "But your mother, my mother," Gabriel sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose, "is a dramatic woman who watches too many soap operas. But she was right about the sniper. I saw the glint on the roof opposite." He looked at her again, his expression softening by a fraction of a millimeter. "You have guts, Finn Mitchell. or you're incredibly stupid. The jury is out. The car swerved, speeding through the rainy streets, bypassing the city centre, and heading toward the hills, specifically the exclusive gated community of Mercer Island. "Where are we going?" Finn asked, clutching her seatbelt. "My estate," Gabriel said. "It's the only place secure enough. Until we figure out how to clean up this mess, you are my fiancée." "For real?" "For real, I can't be your fiancée. I have a cat I have rent to pay. I have a deadline for a blog about organic dog food due tomorrow." "Rocco," Gabriel said calmly. "Call the landlord, buy the building, pay the rent, get the cat, and hire someone to write the dog food blog." "Done, boss." Rocco grunted from the front seat. Finn sat back, stunned. "You can't just buy my life." Gabriel leaned in close, his cologne filling her senses again. "I already did. The moment you kissed me, you signed a contract you didn't read. Welcome to the family, Finn." The Romano estate was not a house. It was a fortress disguised as a palace. High walls, iron gates, and armed guards patrolling the perimeter with German shepherds. As they entered the grand foyer, which featured a chandelier that probably cost more than Finn's entire education, Vittoria Romano came rushing down the marble stairs. "Oh, thank God!" she cried, embracing Gabrielle, then pulling Finn into a suffocating hug. "You were wonderful, darling, absolute perfection. The way you shouted at him, I almost believed it myself." "Mother," Gabrielle warned, stepping back, "you put a civilian in the line of fire. We need to talk about boundaries." "I saved your life, Gabriele," she retorted, smoothing her skirt. "And look. She's adorable. A little skinny maybe, but we can feed her." "I am not a pet," Finn said, finding her voice. "I want to go home." "You can't." A new voice entered the fray. Walking into the room was a man who looked like a slightly more rugged, less polished version of Gabriel. He held a tablet in his hand. This was Matteo, Gabriel's younger brother, and the family's head of intelligence. "Why not?" Finn demanded. Matteo turned the tablet around. "Because this is already trending." On the screen was a grainy video taken from inside the tea shop. It showed Finn tackling Gabriel the kiss and the dramatic exit. The caption read, "The Iron Don has a heart, Gabriel Romano, spotted with mystery woman. Engagement rumored." "It has 10,000 shares in 20 minutes, Matteo said grimly. "The Vanzettis have seen it. The Commission has seen it. If you disappear now, or if they find out it's fake, they will assume weakness. They'll attack tonight." Gabriel swore in Italian, running a hand through his hair. He turned to Finn, his face hard. "It seems we are stuck with each other," he said. "Matteo, draw up the paperwork. We need a backstory." "We met." "Where?" "Library," Finn suggested weakly. "Too boring," Vittoria dismissed. "Gala in Milan." "I've never been to Milan," Finn pointed out. "You have now," Gabriel said. "Rocco, take her to the guest wing. Get her changed. We have dinner with the inner circle in 2 hours. She needs to look like she belongs on my arm, not like she just walked out of a coffee shop." He stepped closer to Finn, his towering frame casting a shadow over her. He reached out his fingers, grazing her chin, tilting her head up. For a second, Finn's breath hitched. She expected a threat. Instead, his thumb brushed her lower lip. "You have tea on your lip," he murmured. "Clean yourself up, Finn. Tonight, you are the future Mrs. Romano. Do not embarrass me." He turned and walked away, his coat billowing behind him. Finn stood in the middle of the marble hall, surrounded by strangers who carried guns and wore Prada. She looked at Vittoria, who offered her a sheepish smile. "Tea," Vittoria offered. Finn let out a hysterical laugh. I think I need something stronger than tea. Finn stared at her reflection in the full-length mirror of the guest suite, hardly recognizing the woman staring back. Gone was the rain-soaked copywriter in a thrifted denim jacket. In her place stood a stranger wearing emerald green silk that clung to every curve like a second skin, with a slit that ran dangerously high up her thigh. Vittoria had called it conservative. Finn called it a hazard. The shoes are Louboutin. Rocco grunted from the doorway. He was holding a pair of black stilettos with red soles that looked like weapons. Boss says put them on. We're late. Finn slid her feet into the shoes. They hurt immediately. Does the boss always dictate his fiancée's wardrobe? Only when his life depends on selling the lie. A voice came from the hallway. Gabriel appeared behind Rocco. He had changed too. He wore a tuxedo, now the bow tie undone, hanging loose around his neck. He looked devastatingly handsome and utterly exhausted. You look... Gabriel paused, his eyes sweeping over her. For a second, the cold mask slipped, replaced by something hotter, darker. He cleared his throat. Adequate. You look adequate. High praise, Finn muttered, smoothing the silk. So what's the plan? Do I just sit there and look pretty? Gabriel stepped into the room, closing the distance between them. The air pressure seemed to drop. Tonight you are facing the cup as the captains of my organization. Specifically, you need to worry about Dante Moretti. He's been waiting for me to slip up for 5 years so he can take the throne. He will question you. He will try to trip you up. If he senses fear, he will attack. Great. No pressure, Finn breathed. Take my arm, Gabriel commanded, offering his elbow. Finn took it. His bicep was hard as rock beneath the expensive fabric. One rule, Finn, he whispered as they walked toward the heavy oak doors of the dining room. Don't lie to me. Lie to them. But never to me. The dining room was dimly lit, illuminated by candlelight that flickered off the silverware. 12 men sat around a long mahogany table. When Gabriel entered, they all stood up, some out of respect, some out of fear. Gentlemen, Gabriel's voice boomed. I apologize for the delay. I was detained. A ripple of low laughter went through the room. Gabriel pulled out a chair for Finn. She sat feeling 12 pairs of eyes dissecting her. So, a raspy voice cut through the silence. This is the mystery woman. Sitting 3 seats down was a man with silver hair and a face that looked like crumpled leather. This was Dante Moretti. He didn't smile. He swirled a glass of dark red wine, his eyes fixed on Finn. Like a hawk spotting a field mouse. Finn, Gabriel said, taking his seat at the head of the table. This is Dante Moretti, my father's oldest associate. Charmed, Finn managed to say, keeping her voice steady. We were surprised, Gabriel, Dante said, ignoring her and looking at the boss. You, the eternal bachelor, suddenly engaged, and to a civilian it seems impulsive, dangerous. Love is rarely convenient, Dante, Gabriel replied smoothly, pouring himself a water. But when you know, you know. Dante smirked, turning his gaze back to Finn. And how did you meet? The papers say Milan. But I was in Milan last month with Gabriel. I didn't see you. The table went silent. This was the test. Finn felt Gabriel tense beside her. He was ready to intervene to shut it down. But Finn knew if he spoke for her, she would look weak. She was a copywriter. Spinning narratives was her job. She took a sip of wine, let the silence hang for a calculated second, and then smiled a bored, sophisticated smile she had copied from Vittoria. "You wouldn't have seen me, Mr. Moretti," Finn said, her voice cool and amused, "because Gabriel was supposed to be at the Galetti fundraiser, but he skipped it to meet me on the terrace of the Bulgari Hotel. He told you he was in a meeting with the supplier from Naples, didn't he?" Dante blinked, caught off guard. Yes, he did." "He wasn't," Finn lied smoothly, turning to look at Gabriel with a look of mock adoration. "He was buying me a gelato and trying to convince me not to fly back to New York. It took him 3 hours. I assume that's why your shipment was late that night. It was a gamble, a massive one." But she remembered Gabriel mentioning a mess in Milan on the phone in the car. Gabriel didn't miss a beat. He leaned back, a lazy grin spreading across his face. "She has a memory, like a steel trap, Dante. I told you she's dangerous." The tension in the room snapped. The other men laughed. Dante's face reddened slightly. He had been outmaneuvered. "To the happy couple!" another man shouted, raising his glass. As the glasses clinked, Gabriel's hand found Finn's under the table. He squeezed her fingers hard. It wasn't a threat this time. It was an anchor. But the victory was short-lived. Just as the main course steak tartare was being served, the double doors burst open. Rocco stormed in, his face pale. He walked straight to Gabriel and whispered in his ear. Gabriel's face turned to stone. He dropped his fork. The clatter echoed like a gunshot. "What is it?" Dante asked, sensing blood. Gabriel stood up slowly. "It seems the Vanzettis have sent a wedding gift." "What kind of gift?" Finn asked, her stomach churning. "A box," Gabriel said, his voice terrifyingly quiet. "Left at the front gate. It contains a finger." Finn gasped, covering her mouth. "And a note," Gabriel continued, his eyes burning into Dante, then shifting to Finn. "The note says, 'Something borrowed, something blue. Give us the girl, or the next piece is you.'" Dante slammed his fist on the table. "This is war. They are mocking us in our own home." Gabriel handed her over. "A girl isn't worth a war with the Vanzetti cartel." "She is my fiancée," Gabriel roared, the sound vibrating through the floorboards. "And she is under my protection. Anyone who suggests handing her over answers to me." He pulled his gun from his holster and slammed it onto the table. "Dinner is over," Gabriel growled. "Rocco, lock down the estate. Level 4 security. Finn, come with me." Finn scrambled up her legs, shaking in the heels. She followed Gabriel out of the room, leaving the stunned Carpos behind. As they exited, she looked back. Dante Moretti wasn't looking at Gabriel. He was looking at his phone, typing a message. She knew with a sinking feeling that the danger wasn't just outside the gates. It was sitting at the table. The master suite of the Romano estate was larger than Finn's entire apartment building. It had a fireplace, a balcony overlooking the grounds, and a bed that looked big enough to sleep a family of 5. Gabriel slammed the door behind them and locked it with 3 separate heavy bolts. He then went to a keypad on the wall and punched in a code. Steel shutters descended over the windows, with a mechanical whir sealing them in. Is that a finger, really?" Finn couldn't finish the sentence. She was hyperventilating. "It wasn't mine, and it wasn't yours," Gabriel said, stripping off his tuxedo jacket and tossing it onto a chair. He loosened his tie, looking like a man on the edge of violence. "It belonged to a Vanzetti soldier. It was a message. They want you terrified." "It's working," Finn shouted. "I'm terrified I'm a writer, Gabriel. My biggest stress is usually writer's block, not dismembered body parts. You have to let me go." "I told you," Gabriel said, walking over to a wet bar in the corner and pouring 2 fingers of amber liquid. "If you leave these walls, you are dead. The Vanzettis think you are the love of my life. Killing you would be the ultimate power move to destroy my reputation. You are safest right here." "Right here." Finn looked around. "In your bedroom. It's the only room in the house with reinforced steel walls and independent air filtration," Gabriel said, downing the drink in one swallow. "You sleep here." "And where do you sleep?" "I don't sleep," Gabriel muttered. "I wait." He walked over to the fireplace and stared into the flames. The silence stretched between them thick and uncomfortable. Finn took off the painful shoes, her bare feet sinking into the plush rug. "You were good tonight," Gabriel said softly, not turning around. "With Dante. That lie about the gelato. It was smart. I used to write press releases for politicians," Finn said, hugging her arms around herself. "Lying with a straight face is a billable skill." Gabriel turned. The firelight cast shadows across his sharp cheekbones. He looked less like a monster and more like a man carrying the weight of the world. "I'm sorry, Finn. I dragged you into this hell." "I dragged myself in," she corrected him. "I kissed you, remember? Why did you do it?" he asked, stepping closer. "Really? You could have run out the back." Finn looked up at him. "Your mother was crying. She looked like she really loved you. I guess I'm a sucker for a mother protecting her son." Gabriel's expression softened. For a moment, the air between them crackled with something other than fear. He reached out his hand, hovering near her face. Knock, knock, knock. The mood shattered. Gabriel's hand flew to the gun at his waist. "Who is it?" he barked. "Rocco, boss. I got the package." Gabriel unlocked the door. Rocco stood there, holding a cat carrier. "Oh my God, Barnaby!" Finn shrieked, rushing forward. She grabbed the carrier and opened it. A very fat, very grumpy orange tabby cat waddled out, looked around the opulent room, and immediately sneezed. "He bit me twice," Rocco said, looking offended, holding up a bandaged finger. "Ferocious beast." Finn scooped up the cat, burying her face in his fur. "I thought I'd never see him again." Tears pricked her eyes. This fat orange cat was the only family she had. She looked up at Gabriel over the cat's fur. Gabriel was watching her with a look of utter bafflement. "That is the beast you were worried about?" Gabriel asked, eyeing the chubby cat. "He has emotional needs," Finn defended, sniffling. "He looks like he has dietary needs," Gabriel noted dryly. But then he did something unexpected. He reached out and scratched Barnaby behind the ears. The cat purred instantly, leaning into the Mafia Don's hand. "At least someone in this room likes me." Finn let out a small, watery laugh. "Get some sleep, Finn," Gabriel said, pointing to the massive bed. "I'll take the couch." "The couch is velvet. You'll ruin it," Finn said. "The bed is huge. We can build a pillow fort, a wall. Stay on your side." Gabriel looked at her amusement dancing in his grey eyes. "A pillow wall? You trust me that much?" "I trust you more than I trust the people outside that door," she admitted honestly. They built the wall, a barrier of pillows down the center of the king-sized mattress. Finn changed into one of Gabriel's silk shirts, which hung to her knees and crawled under the covers on the left side. Barnaby immediately claimed the pillow wall as his throne. Gabriel turned off the lights, plunging the room into darkness, save for the dying fire. Finn heard him lie down on the other side, the mattress shifting under his weight. "Gabriel," she whispered into the dark. "Yeah." Dante Moretti. He was texting someone when we left the dining room. Gabriel was silent for a long time. "I know. What are you going to do? Tomorrow we go on the offensive," Gabriel said, his voice hard again. "Tomorrow we stop pretending to be prey and start acting like predators. But first we have to survive the night." Finn closed her eyes, exhausted. She drifted into a restless sleep, listening to the rhythmic breathing of the man who could kill with his bare hands, yet had made sure her cat was safe. 3:00 a.m. Finn woke up to a hand clamping over her mouth. Her eyes flew open. The room was pitch black. "Shh." Gabriel's voice was a breath against her ear. He was hovering over her, his body tense as a bowstring. "Don't move, don't scream." Finn nodded frantically against his hand. He slowly removed it, placing a finger to his lips. He pointed to the window. The steel shutters. There was a faint, high-pitched hissing sound coming from the seam. A tiny nozzle had been drilled through the metal. A white gas was beginning to curl into the room. "Sleeping gas," Gabriel whispered. "They're inside the house." He grabbed 2 gas masks from a hidden compartment in the headboard. He shoved one over Finn's face, then pulled one on himself. "Rocco isn't answering his comms," Gabriel said, his voice muffled by the mask. "We are on our own." He pulled the sheets back. "Grab the cat. We're leaving." "Leaving how?" Finn's voice was muffled and panicked. "The door is locked." "Not the door," Gabriel said, moving toward the fireplace. He kicked the logs aside and pressed a hidden brick in the hearth. The back of the fireplace swung open, revealing a dark, narrow stone tunnel. "The escape route. It leads to the boathouse." He grabbed his gun and a spare magazine. He looked at Finn, holding Barnaby tight against her chest. "Listen to me," he said, grabbing her shoulders. "From this moment on, you are not a copywriter. You are a survivor. If I tell you to run, you run. If I tell you to shoot—" He pressed a cold, heavy pistol into her free hand. "You pull the trigger until it goes click. Do you understand?" Finn looked at the gun. It was heavy. It was real. "I understand," she squeaked. "Good. Now move." They stepped into the darkness of the tunnel just as the bedroom door exploded inward. The tunnel smelled of damp earth and old secrets. It was narrow, forcing them to run single file. Gabriel led the way, his flashlight cutting an erratic beam through the darkness, while Finn stumbled behind him, clutching the cat carrier against her chest like a shield. "Keep moving," Gabriel urged, his voice tight. "They'll find the entrance in less than 2 minutes." "I'm trying," Finn gasped. The heavy pistol in her pocket banged against her hip, with every step a terrifying reminder of the stakes. Where does this end? Lake Washington. The boathouse. They ran for what felt like miles, though it was likely only a few hundred yards. The sound of their breathing was loud in the confined space. Suddenly, Gabriel stopped. He killed the flashlight. "Silence!" he hissed. Finn froze, holding her breath. Even Barnaby seemed to sense the danger, and remained silent. From above them, through a grate in the tunnel ceiling, came the sound of heavy boots on gravel. Voices. "Check the perimeter. Dante said no witnesses. Find the girl, kill the boss." Finn's blood ran cold. Dante. It wasn't just the Vanzettis. The traitor was indeed Dante Moretti. He had opened the gates from the inside. Gabriel's hand found hers in the dark, squeezing it reassuringly. He waited until the footsteps faded, then pulled her forward. They reached a heavy iron door. Gabriel spun the wheel, and it groaned open. They spilled out into the cool, cavernous space of the boathouse. The smell of gasoline and lake water hit them. Bobbing in the slip was a sleek black cigarette boat, a vessel built for smuggling and speed. But they weren't alone. Leaning against the boat, clutching his side, was Rocco. A pool of dark blood was spreading on the wooden dock beneath him. "Rocco!" Gabriel rushed forward, catching his head of security as he slid down the hull. "Boss!" Rocco wheezed, his teeth stained red. "Dante." He turned the guards. "I took out 2. But there's more coming." "Save your strength," Gabriel ordered, lifting the giant man effortlessly and depositing him into the back seat of the boat. "We're getting you to the dock." "Finn, get in!" Gabriel shouted. Finn threw the cat carrier into the padded cabin below deck and scrambled into the passenger seat. Gabriel jumped behind the wheel and keyed the ignition. The twin V8 engines roared to life, a sound like thunder that shook the wooden structure. At that exact moment, the boathouse doors at the top of the stairs burst open. 4 men in tactical gear poured in. They raised assault rifles. "Get down!" Gabriel screamed, shoving Finn's head toward the dashboard. Bullets chewed up the wood of the dock and pinged off the boat's fiberglass hull. Gabriel slammed the throttle forward. The boat surged the bow, lifting out of the water. They shot out of the boathouse like a bullet from a gun, crashing onto the dark, choppy surface of Lake Washington. Wind whipped Finn's hair across her face. She dared to look back. The boathouse was shrinking in the distance, but 2 other boats, smaller, agile interceptors, were peeling out from the shadows of the shoreline to pursue them. "They have fast movers," Gabriel yelled over the roar of the wind. "Take the wheel!" "What?" Finn shrieked. "I drive a Toyota Corolla. I don't drive this. It's a steering wheel and a throttle. Keep it straight and don't let up." Gabriel abandoned the helm, climbing toward the back of the boat, where Rocco lay groaning. Gabriel reached into a compartment and pulled out a long, matte black assault rifle. He braced himself against the roll bar, aimed at the pursuing boats, and squeezed the trigger. Pop, pop, pop! The sound was deafening. Finn gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. The speedometer climbed 60, 70, 80 miles per hour. The boat slammed against the waves, jarring her bones. Behind them, one of the pursuit boats swerved violently. Gabriel had hit the driver. The boat spun out, capsizing in a spray of white foam. "One down!" Gabriel shouted. But the second boat was closer, and they had a machine gun mounted on the front. Tracer rounds zipped past them, glowing green in the night. One shattered the side mirror inches from Finn's face. Glass sprayed into her hair. "Gabriel!" she screamed. "I see them!" Gabriel fired again, but the boat hit a wake, throwing his aim off. A spray of bullets from the enemy boat raked across the stern. Gabriel jerked back, crying out. He fell onto the deck, the rifle skittering away. "Gabriel!" Finn let go of the wheel for a second, the boat drifting dangerously. She grabbed the wheel again, correcting the course, looking back in terror. Gabriel was trying to stand, but his left shoulder was a mess of blood. He couldn't lift the rifle. The enemy boat was closing in, flanking them on the right. A man was standing up, aiming a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. "Finn!" Gabriel roared, his face pale, clutching his shoulder. "The gun!" "The pistol, use it." "I can't," she sobbed. "You have to aim for the fuel tank. The red canister's on the side. Do it or we die." Finn looked at the enemy boat. She looked at Gabriel bleeding on the deck. She looked at the cabin where her cat was huddled in fear. Something inside her snapped. The fear didn't vanish, but it crystallized into a cold, hard resolve. She pulled the heavy pistol from her pocket. She didn't stand up. That would be suicide. She braced her arm on the edge of the cockpit, steadying her shaking hand against the vibrating fiberglass. The man with the RPG was taking aim. Finn flicked the safety off, just like she'd seen in movies. Don't look at the man, she told herself. Look at the red can. She held her breath. The world seemed to slow down. She pulled the trigger. Bang! The recoil jerked her arm up. The shot went wheel, hitting the water. Again! Gabriel screamed. Lower! She gritted her teeth. She adjusted her aim. Bang! 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 She fired 3 times in rapid succession. The third bullet found its mark. The red fuel canister on the side of the enemy boat sparked. A millisecond later, a ball of orange fire blossomed in the darkness. The explosion ripped the side of the pursuit boat open. The force of the blast threw the RPG aim off. The rocket flew wildly into the sky, exploding harmlessly among the clouds. The enemy boat slowed, engulfed in flames, drifting dead in the water. Finn dropped the gun. She was shaking so hard, her teeth chattered. I did it, she whispered. I actually did it. Gabriel crawled back into the cockpit. He was pale, sweating, and bleeding heavily, but his eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that burned hotter than the explosion behind them. You did it, he rasped. He reached out with his good hand, grabbing the back of her neck and pulling her forehead against his. You saved us, Finn. You saved us all. He took the wheel with his good hand, easing the throttle back as they disappeared into the fog, leaving the burning wreckage behind. They docked at a private unmarked pier on the north side of the lake an hour later. The adrenaline had crashed, leaving Finn feeling hollow and trembling. Rocco was conscious but weak. I'll call the cleaner crew, he mumbled. I'll go to the safe house in the city. You two. Go up the mountain. The Blackwood cabin. No one knows about it. Not even Dante. Gabriel nodded. He helped Rocco into a waiting sedan that had been staged at the dock, then watched as his loyal guard drove off into the night. Gabriel turned to Finn. He looked like death. His white shirt was soaked red on the left side. Can you walk? He asked. Can I walk? Finn let out a hysterical laugh. I just blew up a boat, Gabriel. I think I can walk up a hill. He offered a weak, pained smile. Grab the cat. The Blackwood cabin was rustic but luxurious, hidden deep within a pine forest. Gabriel punched a code into the door, and they stumbled inside. First aid kit, Gabriel grunted, collapsing onto a leather sofa. Under the sink in the bathroom. Finn moved into autopilot. She found the kit a military-grade trauma box and brought it to the living room. She let Barnaby out of the carrier. The cat immediately ran under the armchair and hissed. I don't blame him, Finn muttered. She knelt beside Gabriel. I don't know how to do this. I'm a writer. I type things. Cut the shirt open. Gabriel instructed, his voice strained. Clean it, staple it, wrap it. Staple it, Finn horrified. No time for stitches. Just do it. Finn's hands shook as she used the shears to cut away the ruined silk shirt. The wound was ugly, a deep gash across his deltoid where the bullet had grazed him. It wasn't life-threatening, but he had lost a lot of blood. She poured the disinfectant. Gabriel hissed through his teeth, his back arching off the sofa muscles, pulling tight. He didn't scream. I'm sorry, Finn cried. Keep going, he panted. She cleaned the wound. She held the skin together. She picked up the medical stapler. On 3, she said. 1, 2. Chunk. She did it. Then again, and again. Gabriel groaned, his head falling back against the cushions, sweat beading on his forehead. "You have a terrible bedside manner," he whispered. "I'm doing my best." Finn wrapped the bandage tightly around his shoulder. When she was finished, she sat back on her heels, her hands covered in his blood. The reality of the night finally hit her. The sniper, the finger, the tunnel, the explosion. She started to cry. Silent, shaking sobs. Gabriel opened his eyes. He reached out with his good arm and pulled her up onto the sofa beside him. "Finn," he murmured. "Hey, look at me." She looked at him. His face was grey, but his eyes were clear. "You were incredible tonight," he said. "Most people would have frozen. You fought." "I was scared," she admitted. "I'm still scared." "Good. Fear keeps you alive." He ran his thumb over her cheek, wiping away a smudge of engine grease. "Why didn't you run at the dock? You could have jumped out and run into the woods." "And leave you to die?" Finn asked, indignant. "We had a deal. You save my cat, I pretend to be your fiancé." Gabriel chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. "I think the terms of the deal have changed." The atmosphere in the room shifted. The danger was outside, miles away. Inside it was just the fire crackling in the hearth, the smell of antiseptic, and the man who had turned her life upside down. He looked at her lips. Finn's breath hitched. "Dante will come for us," she whispered. "Let him come." Gabriel said, his voice dropping an octave. "I'll burn the city down before I let him touch you." He leaned in. This wasn't for a show. There were no cameras, no Vanzettis watching. He kissed her. It wasn't like the kiss in the tea shop. That was desperate and performative. This was slow, deliberate, and tasted of iron and whiskey. It was a claim. Finn melted into him, careful of his shoulder, her hands tangling in his dark hair. For a moment, she forgot the Mafia, the guns, and the fear. She only felt him. Gabriel pulled back, resting his forehead against hers. "I need to sleep, just for an hour. Then we finish this." "I'll take the first watch," Finn said, surprised by her own bravery. She picked up the pistol from the coffee table. It felt lighter now, familiar. Gabriel looked at her, a mixture of pride and regret in his eyes. He nodded, trusting her. He closed his eyes and was asleep within seconds. Finn sat in the armchair by the window, the gun in her lap. Barnaby crept out from under the chair and jumped onto her lap, purring loudly. She looked out into the dark forest. She knew this wasn't over. Dante Moretti was still out there. The Vanzettis were still out there. And tomorrow, Gabriel would have to go to war to take back his kingdom. But as she watched the sun begin to crest over the mountains, painting the sky in hues of blood orange and violet, Finn realized something. She wasn't the same girl who drank tea alone. That girl was gone. The woman sitting in this chair was the fiancée of the Don, and she was ready to help him take back his throne. Suddenly, Gabriel's burner phone on the table buzzed. Finn froze. She looked at Gabriel. He didn't stir. She reached out and picked up the phone. There was one text message from an unknown number. It read, "I know where you are, and I have your mother." Finn's heart stopped. She looked at Gabriel sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. If she woke him, he would walk into a trap. If she didn't, his mother would die. She looked at the gun. She looked at the keys to the SUV Gabriel had mentioned earlier. She made a choice. A stupid, brave, reckless choice. She stood up, placed the phone on the table, and wrote a note on a napkin. "I'm going to finish the deal. Come get me when you wake up." She tucked the gun into her waistband, grabbed the keys, and walked out the door alone. The text message led Finn to the industrial district of Seattle, specifically to Pier 54. A shipping yard owned by a shell company Finn now knew belonged to Dante Moretti. She parked Gabriel's SUV in the shadows of a crane. The morning mist was thick, obscuring the world in shades of grey. She checked the gun in her waistband. It was cold against her skin. She wasn't shaking anymore. She was angry. She walked toward the designated warehouse, her heels clicking rhythmically on the concrete. She pushed open the rusty side door and stepped into the cavernous space. "I'm here," she called out, her voice echoing off the metal shipping containers stacked high around her. "Let her go." A slow clap emerged from the darkness. Spotlights clicked on, blinding her for a moment. When her eyes adjusted, she saw them. In the center of the warehouse, tied to a wooden chair, was Vittoria Romano. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup ruined by tears, but she was alive. Standing behind her, holding a gun to Vittoria's head, was Dante Moretti. He was flanked by 6 armed men mercenaries, by the look of their mismatched tactical gear. "You actually came," Dante sneered, stepping into the light. "I thought Gabriel had better taste. You really are just a stupid little girl." "I'm the girl who blew up your boat," Finn said, keeping her hands visible. "Where is Gabriel? You said if I came, you'd leave him out of this." "Gabriel is likely bleeding out in a cabin somewhere," Dante laughed. "Or he's on his way to a trap I set on the highway. Either way, the Romano Empire ends today, and the Moretti era begins." "Why?" Finn asked, stalling. She needed time. "He trusted you." "Trusted me," Dante spat. "I built this family while his father was playing golf with senators. I was in the trenches, and then the old man dies and leaves it all to Gabriel. A boy who wants to legitimize the business, who wants to sell tech stocks instead of weapons. He is weak." "He isn't weak," Finn said quietly. "He has something you don't." "And what is that?" "Loyalty." Dante scoffed. "Loyalty is bought. Speaking of which," he raised his gun, pointing it directly at Finn's chest. "Any last words, Miss Mitchell? Perhaps a blog post about your final moments?" Finn didn't flinch. She stared him dead in the eye. "Actually, yes. I have one question. Does the name Judge Arthur J. Sterling mean anything to you?" Dante froze. The color drained from his face. "How? Where did you hear that name?" Finn smiled. It was the smile of a woman holding a royal flush. "When I was in Gabriel's bedroom before we escaped, I saw his tablet. I saw the files he had on you, Dante. He knew you were skimming money. He knew you were paying off Judge Sterling to keep your personal operations off the books. And before I left the cabin this morning, I emailed those files to the FBI, the IRS, and the Vanzetti family." "You lie," Dante screamed, his hand shaking. "Check your phone," Finn challenged. Dante pulled his phone out with his free hand. He swiped the screen. His eyes widened in horror. "The Vanzettis. They just put a $5 million bounty on my head for operating in their territory without permission," Dante whispered. "You're done, Dante," Finn said. "The police are coming. The Vanzettis are coming. You can shoot me, but you're not walking out of here alive." Dante's face twisted into a mask of pure rage. He dropped the phone and raised the gun again. "If I go down, I'm taking his favorite toy with me." He tightened his finger on the trigger. Crash! The skylight above them shattered. A figure descended on a repelling line, dressed in black, moving with the speed of a striking cobra. It was Gabriel. He swung down his boots, colliding with Dante's chest, sending the traitor flying backward into a stack of crates. Gabriel landed in a crouch, ignoring his injured shoulder. He raised his gun and fired 2 shots. 2 of the mercenaries dropped. "Finn, get down!" Gabriel roared. Finn dove behind a forklift, just as the warehouse erupted in gunfire. "Kill him!" Dante screamed, scrambling to his feet, blood pouring from his nose. The remaining 4 mercenaries opened fire on Gabriel, who rolled behind a concrete pillar. He was pinned down. Finn looked at the gun in her hand. She looked at Vittoria, who was still tied to the chair in the middle of the crossfire, screaming. Finn didn't think. She crawled on her stomach, keeping low, moving toward the fuse box she had spotted when she walked in. Bullets chipped the concrete above her head. She reached the box. She jammed the barrel of her gun into the lock and fired. The door popped open. She yanked the main lever down. The warehouse plunged into total darkness. "Hold your fire!" Dante yelled. "I can't see." In the silence, a voice echoed. It came from everywhere and nowhere. "You made a mistake, Dante." Gabriel's voice was calm, terrifying. "You threatened my mother, and you touched my wife." "She's not your wife," Dante shouted into the dark, spinning around. "She is in every way that matters." A muzzle flash lit up the dark. Bang! A mercenary fell. Bang! Another one down. Finn could hear the panic in Dante's breathing. He was alone now. "Lights!" Dante screamed. "Turn on the lights!" Finn reached up and shoved the lever back up. The lights buzzed back to life. Gabriel was standing 5 feet in front of Dante. He had discarded his gun. He was unarmed. "Man to man," Gabriel said, his eyes burning with cold fury. "For the family." Dante pulled a knife from his boot and lunged. It was a brutal, ugly fight. Dante was desperate, slashing wildly, but Gabriel was disciplined. He sidestepped a slash, caught Dante's wrist, and twisted. There was a sickening snap. Dante howled, dropping the knife. Gabriel didn't stop. He drove his knee into Dante's stomach, then delivered a right hook that knocked the traitor to the ground. Dante gasped for air, looking up at Gabriel. "Do it," he wheezed. "Finish it." Gabriel stood over him, chest heaving. He looked at Finn, who had rushed to untie Vittoria. He looked at his mother. "No," Gabriel said, straightening his jacket. "Death is too easy for you." Sirens wailed in the distance. Blue and red lights flashed against the high windows. "The files Finn sent," Gabriel said coldly. "They were real. The feds are here. You're going to prison, Dante. And in prison, the Vanzettis will find you. You'll spend the rest of your short life looking over your shoulder." The warehouse doors burst open. FBI agents in windbreakers swarmed the building. "Hands up us all, hands in the air." Gabriel slowly raised his hands, but he didn't look at the police. He looked at Finn. He walked toward her, ignoring the shouting agents. "Gabriel, stop!" an agent yelled. "Let him," a man in a suit commanded from the doorway. It was the real Judge Sterling, looking pale and terrified, pointing at Dante. "That's the man you want, Moretti. He's the one running the laundering scheme." In the chaos of Dante's arrest, Gabriel reached Finn. He cupped her face in his hands. "You came for me," he whispered, sounding awestruck. "You foolish, brave woman. You came back." "You came for me," Finn countered, tears streaming down her face. "With a bad shoulder." "I told you," Gabriel said, resting his forehead against hers. "I'd burn the city down before I let them touch you." "Is it over?" she asked. Gabriel looked at Dante being dragged away in handcuffs. He looked at his mother, who was being attended to by a medic, but gave them a thumbs up. "The war is over," Gabriel said. He lowered his voice. "But our contract, the engagement, that's a problem." Finn's heart sank. "Right. The deal. It's done. I can go back to my cat." "No," Gabriel said, shaking his head. "I can't let you go. You know too much now. You're a liability." Finn stiffened. "So, what, you're going to kill me?" Gabriel laughed, a genuine warm sound. He dropped to one knee right there on the dirty warehouse floor in front of the FBI, the Vanzetti spies watching from the shadows, and his mother. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. It wasn't a diamond. It was a simple, heavy silver band with the Romano crest, a wolf, engraved on it. "I'm not going to kill you, Finn," he said, looking up at her with eyes that promised forever. "I'm going to marry you. For real. No contracts, no pretending. I love you. I loved you the moment you poured tea on my life." Finn stared at him. She looked at the ring. She looked at the man who was dangerous, complicated, and utterly hers. "I have conditions," she said, crossing her arms. "Anything," Gabriel vowed. "Barnaby sleeps on the bed, and I pick the honeymoon destination, somewhere with no guns." Gabriel grinned. "Deal." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Finn pulled him up and kissed him. It was a kiss that sealed a new empire, one built not just on power, but on an accidental meeting in a tea shop that changed everything. As they walked out of the warehouse, hand in hand, into the blinding flashes of the paparazzi who had somehow found the location, Finn whispered to her fiancé, "Smile, darling. We're trending." Gabriel Romano, the Iron Don of Seattle, smiled, and for the first time in his life, he didn't check the exits. He was exactly where he wanted to be. Wow. Can you believe she went into that warehouse alone? That is what I call a ride-or-die woman. But here is a question for you. If a stranger grabbed you in a cafe and asked you to pretend to be their fiancé to save their life, honestly, would you do it? Or would you run out the back door? Let me know in the comments. Are you team run away or team fake it till you make it? If you enjoyed this story of Finn and Gabriel, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more stories about unexpected romance, dangerous twists, and karma hitting the right people, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.